Hi, everyone. It's Tessa.
And Joe.
From the Unveiling Paradise podcast.
Tessa, summer is almost here, and so many of our listeners are about to have their epic destination wedding.
And we are so excited for you guys.
Before the big day, guys, we want you to make sure you listen to these 3 episodes.
Episode 62, Deep Diving Your Wedding Ceremony.
Episode 53, Questions Your Wedding Guests Will Ask.
And episode 31, the final countdown to your wedding day.
And if you're planning your wedding here in Hawaii, hit us up and ask us about our Unveiling Paradise podcast promo.
Happy planning.
Welcome, everybody, to the Unveiling Paradise podcast show. Guys, guess what? We have a bonus season 5 teaser. We have the opportunity to speak with Alan Berg today, who was the VP of sales at The Knot, who is now a business consult for all of us in the wedding industry. Tessa, isn't this amazing?
Yeah, I am so excited. Alan, welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you. Just to give everybody a little background, Joe and I are both in the wedding industry. We're both in the Oahu Wedding Association, and we just had this great idea to bring in Alan to speak to everyone. So he just spoke to a huge crowd of wedding vendors about how to just be better vendors for you, our couples, our listeners. So we were like, why wouldn't we bring him on the show? So we are so stoked. So welcome, Alan, to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to be able to speak to your audience, people who are planning destination weddings in Hawaii. I mean, what a beautiful thing.
And Alan, you mentioned that your son is getting married too. So you are a father helping maybe to plan a wedding?
I'm a father who helped plan a wedding by getting them a really excellent wedding planner.
Smartest move ever.
That was the first thing that I did, as I said, you guys don't know what you don't know. And I know somebody who knows everything that you don't know. So I got them a planner in their area, somebody who just really is so tight in that industry that anything that they need, and they're doing very non-traditional stuff, so anything they need, he'll be able to help them.
I love that so much.
Before we get started, we have a billion questions to ask you, but just give our listeners a little bit of your background and why you are this big phenom in the wedding industry.
So I started in the wedding industry not to get into it. I had no great plan. A friend of mine bought a wedding magazine, and I was in a job making really good money that I hated. And he said, I want you to come work for me. And I didn't know the industry. I had never done outside sales. I had never done cold calling. It was straight commission, no salary or anything. My wife was pregnant. And the son that she was pregnant with has a 7-year-old now. So that's how long I've been in the wedding industry.
Yeah.
And that's not the one getting married. That's his younger brother, actually, that has the 7-year-old. And I sold wedding advertising for 5 years. I published 2 wedding magazines. And then I went to work for The Knot, which was a new company at the time. I was at The Knot for 11 years, and I left The Knot in 2011, and I consult to wedding and event businesses around the world. I've spoken in 14 countries. I'm working on my 11th book now, and I help wedding businesses have a better business so that they can help more couples have amazing weddings.
And I love that. And I think the biggest thing for our show is really trying to figure out how to better engage with people who are engaged, right? And so we want to make sure that from start to finish, when you start planning your wedding, you're having those real conversations that let you actually have that dream come to life.
Right. So, one thing that Alan had kind of talked about was friction with your vendors. So what is the advice that you can give to couples on how to best connect with vendors?
Everybody already has a way that they use the internet, right? The way that we search, the places that we go. Understand that wherever you're searching is a subset of what's out there, because any particular platform only has some people. Social media is great, except it's their sandbox and their toys, so you go looking for something, you're going to get a subset of what's out there. So it's probably a good idea to look in different places so that you can get more of an idea of what you're looking for. Also understand that Instagram and Pinterest are your friend and your enemy at the same time.
Right.
Was that your frenemy? They're your frenemy. That's what it is. And the reason is you don't know how much it costs to get that result. So understand that when you reach out to different vendors and you say, hey, here's my inspiration board, here are some photos I like, here's some great, that you have no idea what it costs to get there. And everybody's got a budget. Some budgets are bigger than others, but everybody's got a budget. And I think everybody is entitled to have and should have a beautiful wedding, but understanding that there's no law that says you have to throw a party. This is you choosing to do so, and you're choosing to do it like we did when we got married. because you don't think you're ever going to do it again. You don't want to ever do this again. This is what you're doing. So this is why you're inviting your friends and your family together to celebrate this moment. I would say get your inspirations, start talking to friends, start talking to family, your network of people. And again, you're at the gym, you're on the treadmill, somebody on the treadmill next to you say, hey, do you know a great wedding planner or whatever? And then you have to do your own research. Just because somebody else loves someone doesn't mean you're going to love them. Doesn't mean you're going to connect the same way. And I'm sure you found this if you needed a dog groomer. You might like them and they might not like them, or a hairstylist or something like that. So start with your circle of friends, because we have social proof. We want to know that you've done something for someone that looks like what I want, and it's been a successful outcome. The next thing is you have to read their reviews. That's really important, to read their reviews. And then understand that it doesn't have to be a perfect 5.0 for somebody to say they do a good job. If you're like me and you post reviews of restaurants and hotels and things like that, you don't always give somebody a 5 when you had a good time. It's great. You may not do that. So if you see someone who's got 4.7, 4.8, don't pass them by because they're not perfect 5.0. There are just some people out there you can't please. It's just what it is. And then just ask great questions. Understand that you don't know what they know. Right? That's really the thing is, when we're buying something we've never bought, we don't know how to shop. Right? When I'm buying something I've never bought, I don't know how to shop. So I have to rely on the businesses, but I also have to be a better consumer and say, let me try to articulate to you, this is what I'm looking for. And remember, you're not buying people's products and services. You're buying the results of them bringing those products and services. Because on paper, don't get fooled by, they all look kind of the same, but this one's a cheaper price, so I'll go with them. You go with the one you want the results. You don't go with the one that's a cheaper price because it's cheaper, because your guests will never thank you for paying less.
Right.
And I think that's true. We always talk about, when you're looking for a vendor, what are you looking for? And again, right, wedding planners, we all are very similar, but very different. A lot of the wedding planners that were even in the room with us today, we are very different in how we manage weddings, how we communicate with our couples, how we create and design. So again, finding those vendors that what we say is what fits your vibe. Finding the vendor that best fits your vibe is so important for you.
Well, it's also somebody that understands your vibe. It's also somebody who can ask you some really good questions, because you may not be able to articulate that.
Right.
You've known you had a great time when you felt you had a great time. Now tell somebody why it was a great time, and you'd be like, I don't know, it was just a great time, right? So that's where you need the language that you don't have, and you need somebody to ask you good questions to find out, because everybody says they want their wedding to be unique, which is great, and it will be. Your wedding will be unique even if it has the same colors as the wedding that was there the day before, because the people are different.
Right.
And the music is different, and the photographer is different, and the whole thing is different, and the vibe is different. So don't be different just to be different. Be different to represent you. You want your guests to come in, and from the moment they get invited, you want even the look of the save the date and the invitation to say, this is what this wedding is going to be like. And you want people to go, that is so them. That is so them. I want this to be you.
Exactly.
And then advice that I actually heard from Colin Cowie, who is, he did the
Love
Seinfeld
him.
wedding. He did Bennifer's wedding, right?
Yeah.
But he's done all these weddings. And I remember the ceremony is about you. The ceremony is all about you, because that's your marriage. That's the only part that's legally required. That's something nobody told my wife and I. And we had a very cookie cutter, do you, love, honor, cherish, yada, 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 you're married, get out of here, right? That's what we had. We didn't write our own vows. We didn't say anything personal to each other. It was that. And it was done. And now I look and I see, like for my son, I sent him a link to someone who can help write vows, who can help write speeches and things, because that's the part that really matters. That's the part that lasts. Your guests are going to go home, and you're together, and now for the rest of your lives, that's important. Now, the second part is about the guests. You invited these people to come and celebrate the first part. So what food would you serve them that they like? What drinks that they like? The music that they like?
Right.
That's what you have to think about. This is about celebrating with your friends and family the fact that you just got married, but you want them to have a great time. I've heard too many stories about people that they make it all about themselves, and then the guests start leaving early because they're like, I don't feel, this wasn't for me.
Right,
This isn't my
right.
food, my vibe, my whatever.
Let me step back to what you had said just a few minutes ago. I know that we talk about pricing and budget and all these things. You have a big pet peeve, and that is starting with the question of how much do you cost? If you're planning a wedding, what should your question be to maybe say someone like Tessa, who's a coordinator, or me, who's a photographer? If you're planning your wedding, what should that question be? So you can does that person fit my vibe? Did they understand me? Do they get to understand like maybe my aesthetic or whatever that might be?
Right. Well, part of that is going to be the vendors themselves and their websites. Does the website represent the kind of work that they can do? Or is it just generic? And again, like you said, Tessa, a planner is a planner. They're not.
Right.
But on paper, every planner looks like they do the same thing, like every photographer looks like they do the same thing, like every consultant looks like they do the same thing, but they don't. And until you've experienced it, how do you know what's different there? So understand that when we're shopping for something we've never bought before, we don't have the language for that. We also set budgets in a vacuum because we've never bought it before, so we don't have any history, what's called framing, right? Every time you buy something that you have bought before, you say, well, I bought this before, I paid about this much, it's 5 years later, it's going to cost more. Okay, I'm going to set my budget higher, okay? But all of us have spent more on something than we originally intended because we didn't know what the results we want cost. So when you're talking to someone like Tessa, first of all, if you're talking to a planner, you already understand the value that a planner brings. And the value that a planner brings is you don't want to be working your wedding.
Right.
You don't want your family to be working your wedding. You don't have to worry about who's showing up when and all this kind of stuff. You want a professional to take care of that. You use a professional for everything else important in your life. This isn't too important. That was the first thing that I did for my son and his fiance is I got them a planner because they don't know what they don't know. The planner is going to help them with that language. So understand that you need help. That's not to say that the planner is going to make the wedding what they want. No, the planner is going to make the wedding what you want by finding out from you. So what you want to do is talk to the planner and say, tell me about some of the weddings that you've done, and then why did they end up this way? Like, why did they choose that? Because if you don't know why you want something, just that you want something, right, you have to get to the root of what that is. So you need to be asking better questions. You can start with some things like, on the knot or wedding wire where they will have questions to ask. Understand those are generic questions, but it's not a bad starting point. And then your planner should be asking you good questions, right? They're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them because they have to want to work with you and you have to want to work with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
So true.
Yeah. And again, same thing with a photographer. You're spending an awful lot of time up close and personal with that photographer. And that's why engagement shoots, if you can do them, are a great thing because you can get comfortable with that photographer and who their personality is. It's hard to tell in one photographer from another when all their pictures are beautiful. What's going to make the difference is not their photographic skills. What's going to make their difference is, first of all, their wedding experience will tell them they know what to anticipate that's going to happen, and that's why they'll capture those great candid moments, as opposed to someone who's a great photographer but has never done weddings. They don't know what's going to happen. They're not going to coordinate with the band or the DJ and the caterer and all that, make sure that everything is captured. But really what it's about is personality.
Mm-hmm.
You want, let's see, from getting ready, right, through the ceremony, through the cocktails, through the reception, through the after party, right, at 8, 10, 12 hours with somebody up close and personal, you better want to be around them.
Do you think you can tell if a photographer is a creepy photographer or has an amazing personality from their website?
If they do it well, and I'm writing my second book on websites right now, so a lot of people, unfortunately, don't do it well. Too many photographers make their websites just a big gallery.
Yeah.
And that's because they're photographers. So they look at pictures and they understand light and shadow and composition and all the things that matter. I'm an amateur photographer, so I'm dangerous, right? So
Right.
I was on the college yearbook and newspaper staff, so I'm dangerous. But most people look at a picture and it's like, I like the picture, I don't like the picture, and you're looking at the style of the wedding that was in the picture as opposed to the style of the photography. So where a photographer could or should do better is, or where you as a couple can do, is look at the social proof, look at the reviews. If the reviews are talking about how much fun they were to be around, how comfortable it made them feel and things like that, that's what it is. And if somebody's got dozens or hundreds of reviews that say, I love Joe because, right, that's the why. That's why those couples, because yes, they're going to say the pictures are beautiful, but what they're going to say is they made me feel so comfortable in front of the camera. There was so much, people thought they were part of the family. I thought they knew them for years or whatever. Your social proof is really where you can differentiate between one of any vendor category and another. Planner, the same thing. Band, DJ, the same thing. Venue, caterer, the same thing.
And I love that. And, you had talked about it previously, and it's that same thing where I feel like I say this to so many photographers. Like, I'm not a professional photographer. When I'm looking at a photo, I'm like, oh, I don't like her hair, or I wish her double chin was, because I'm looking at it as I would look at myself. I am critical of myself. So anytime I see pictures of me, I am very critical, not of the composition or the lighting or the style. I'm like, oh, my dress was wrinkled, or God, that hair out of place, So I'm very critical of myself. And I tell photographers, when you're selling to couples, look at that, right? That is what we're trying to look at. The couples are looking at, what am I going to look like in this day?
And part of that is, are you showing the variety? We talk about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, but diversity comes in many forms. So you want to show people that look like real people. Mm-hmm. Not everybody is 6 foot tall, size 0. I mean, fortunately, the dress manufacturers and others have caught along with that, and we're not seeing all just the beautiful, whatever beautiful means. I'm air quoting here if you're just listening. But we want to show real people, and real people come in all shapes and sizes and colors, and as long as they look comfortable in front of that camera, as long as you've captured the emotion of it, because what a great photographer is going to do is going to capture the moment so that somebody else looks at that picture and goes, yeah, I want to feel like that.
Sure.
But you're exactly right, Tessa. My wife, who you'll meet tonight when we go to dinner, if I take a picture and I love the picture, she has to look at it and approve it, or I'm not allowed to show it to anybody.
Exactly, yeah. Sometimes my husband will take a picture. I'm like, nope. Start over.
And I have one picture. She texted me. I was away somewhere, and she texted me, and she was wearing this hat. She was never a hat person, right? I messed my hair, whatever. And she always had real short hair, so she was always spiked up or whatever. And now her hair is much longer, and now she'll have a ponytail, and sometimes it's braided. And actually, we got her to wear a baseball cap, pull the braid through the back of the baseball cap. And I just thought she was adorable. I thought our third date was my 17th birthday. I fell hard, and I'm still there for her. But she's wearing more of a floppy hat out here to have a little bit more shade. And she sent me this picture with this hat on, and I was like, I love that picture. And she looks like, that picture? But that picture to me, is her. Right? The way she's looking at the camera, I just feeling that love. And my son was getting married. I told my wife, we had seen them one time, and I said, I know she's the one. And she said, I do too, but how do you know? I said, the way he looks at her.
Yeah.
And a great photographer is going to capture that.
Turning back to what you said about social proof, though, Alan, yeah, I know you're biased probably to the Knot and to Wedding Wire because, you have a ton of experience, but where should we be looking for that social proof? What are your recommendations?
Well, all you have to do is if you go into your favorite search engine, probably Google or Bing or whatever, and you type in a business name and wedding reviews.
Yeah.
If they're there, they should show up.
Yeah.
Okay. So, why do the Knot and Wedding Wire have so many reviews is because they have more couples using them than any other platform.
Sure.
So if a newer platform like a Zola or Style Me Pretty or something like that, if they have reviews, they're not going to have as many because they just haven't been around as long. Mm-hmm. Wedding Wire was the first one to come out with reviews, so they're going to have millions of reviews there of different vendors. Truth is that most people don't go back very far to look into reviews. If you're searching for anything and you see somebody's got 237 reviews, you're not going to read them. Mm-hmm. The average couple, I heard, read 5 to 7 reviews per vendor, except for photographers and venues, then it's 7 to 9.
Oh, interesting.
The Knot and Wedding Wire just have more reviews for weddings than anybody else. So that's why they're there. So am I biased towards it? Not specifically for that reason. They just do.
Right.
That's what they do. My son and his fiance told me that they're doing their personal wedding webpage on the Knot. They could have done it on Wedding Wire. They could have done it someplace else. They did it there, made it easy. Registry, they wanted to register. They don't need towels. They don't need vacuum cleaners or whatever. So they wanted to register for their honeymoon without saying exactly where the honeymoon's going to be. They're able to do that. That's what they're doing. But reviews in general, social proof is our way of breaking through the clutter. And something that the Knot and Wedding Wire do have that they've done recently, and you guys may not have even seen this. If you look at the top of the reviews, before you get to the first one, they've done an AI summary of the reviews.
Oh, interesting. I haven't seen that yet.
So let's say you have 237 reviews. Nobody's going to read all 237, but AI did. Mm. And AI gives you this paragraph, which tells it. And what's really interesting is if you look from one planner or photographer to the next, They might both have 237 5-star reviews or 4.9, 4.8, but the summary is different.
What do you think they say about you, Tessa? What's your AI?
Fun? I don't know. What's really cool is I actually saw that on Amazon. I just noticed it where they are doing, because when you're buying things on Amazon, they have the different, all the different reviews, but they do have that summary. I assume it's AI, but there is a summary. Or it'll have a note like, beware, this product is often returned, or it's one of the higher ranked, or it's very rarely returned. And I'm like, this is new, probably, I don't know, in the last few months, but it's so amazing.
I don't remember seeing that. So, but this is the idea that years ago, because I've been consulting to Wedding Wire and the Knot since I left, one of the challenges was you had so many people that have really great reviews that how does a couple tell the difference?
Right.
So again, everybody's got 5.0, 4.9, 4.8. Okay. A friend of mine, his daughter's getting married, and he asked me about these two bands up in Boston. I didn't know them. I said, let me go take a look. And you can't make this up. One of them had 526 reviews. One of them had 529. Oh my God. I'm like, okay, so I can't go by that. Not that if one had 300, it's bad, right? But it was just like, you can't make this up. They were that close. And they both had great scores on top of that. I said, well, this is how we're going to tell. Is we're going to look at the summary now, and we're going to say, okay, we love this band because we love that band because.
Yeah.
Right.
And then different doesn't mean better or worse. It just means different, which is also an important thing when you as a couple or anybody as a consumer, once you make a decision, your decision is that I want the results that this planner or this photographer or this DJ or this invitation person can do. I'm not going to get the results of somebody else. You'll never know if the results are better because it's only going to happen once.
Right.
But your perception is this is the person that I'm going to entrust with this. And that's where the reviews come in, because what your vendors tell you is what they can do for you. What your reviews say is what they did do for somebody. So that's why reading the reviews, that's why we trust social proof so much, because people are saying, you did this for me. Like when I look at restaurants, just because somebody has a bad review, it doesn't mean I'm not going to use them. I remember one time somebody was complaining about the clams or whatever. It's like, I don't like clams.
You're not going to eat that anyway.
I don't really care. I don't really care. Oh, but this one loved the rack of lamb, or this one loved the ahi, or whatever. Great, that's what we want. So sometimes the negative, and people are people. There are some people you just can't please. Right. So you have to look at the balance. If somebody's got like 99% of people are giving them 5, 4.8, 4.9, and somebody gave them a 2, you kind of like the Olympics, throw that out.
Yeah. I think that's so even more important when you think about destination weddings, right? If you're planning a wedding and at a place that you've never been to before, or maybe you've traveled, but you don't have that face-to-face interaction. Yeah. How do you separate the pros from, the cons or whatever, con artists, whatever it is?
Well, but that's what it is. Again, if you look into the social proof. So again, you should go to somebody's website. You should look at photos and things. Understand that those are curated by that business. They have to be, because it's that business's website. When you look at the reviews and you look at the ones on the independent sites, that's when you're getting an idea of what people did. So what's important to you? That's what you have to decide. Do you have a lot of time on your hands? Do you not have a lot of time on your hands? If you don't have a lot of time on your hands, you probably want a full service planner, somebody that can take this from soup to nuts for you. You like to have your hand in it, and I want partial planning, where it's like, I want to make some of these decisions, but I want professional help here, because especially destination. Here you have someone like, I live on the East Coast, so here you have somebody in Hawaii who knows all the best people on the ground, who's going to have those relationships, those people who work well together. Again, you're not looking for the cheap result, you're looking for the best results for what you want. But figure out what's important to you. And if you're the type of person that likes to do all the research and you have that kind of time, but you want somebody who's going to do a day of management, and it's day of is a horrible phrase. You don't want somebody for the day of. You want somebody to take over weeks before, so you can coast into your wedding enjoying it. It's just a horrible phrase, day of, but people use it. So you
it's catchy. It's catchy. It's got to go though.
Right.
Yep.
But the idea is that on the day of your wedding, the last thing you want to be doing is working. You want to be enjoying that. So who are you? And understand that. And I think we all are multiples of those people for different things, but something as important as your wedding, which is let's call it's one and done, right? And if it's not your first wedding, it's the last one, right? So, listen, it's my cousin unfortunately got widowed, and she wasn't looking for love and found love, and they had a beautiful wedding out in Malibu, right? That's the last one. That's the last one. So you want to make sure that you connect with that person, but they also understand what's important to you and how you plan, because you want to be a good fit, right? If you're a person who likes to have your hand in everything, you might clash with a planner who likes to have their hand in everything, because that's not a good fit.
Right.
And then if you're the type of person like, I don't know anything and I'm just going to rely on you for all of this, they should be asking you good questions and say, my recommendation is based upon what you want. It's this person. Look at their reviews, look at their site, and I think you'll look great.
So I guess taking it back again, right? When we are talking about, we've looked at the reviews, we've found a couple that we like, we're going to reach out to them. Instead of saying, hey, what's your price? Or, what's your availability? What would you suggest be the first question that we should ask when interviewing a vendor?
Okay, well, availability is not a bad question, because
That's
if someone's not available, no, because it depends, right? For a venue, availability is different, because you're in good company if you change your original date, because you're fighting with everybody else for those dates.
Sure.
So to expect, if you have not booked a venue yet, that changing the date is a possibility. Also understand that if it's a destination wedding, any day of the week is fine.
Right.
Your guests are coming out, and if they're coming to Hawaii, they're hopefully not coming in for the day and leaving.
Yeah.
Right? It's a long way from everywhere, right? It's easy to get to, but they're not popping home in an hour.
Right.
So understand any day of the week is fine. Plus, you're planning months, if not a year in advance, and if somebody needed to take off some days because you had your wedding on a Thursday. My son's actually getting married on a Thursday, right? The people coming out know long in advance. It's not like you can't take off. Tomorrow I can't take off. I can take off next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not a problem. So is price a good question? Yes. Is it the good first question? No. Because the price doesn't tell you the results. The price just tells you a number. Any more than if you said, okay, how much is a car? A car is this much. Okay, well, what kind of car is it? And what color the car is? And what features does the car have? So price is not a good first question, because you have a must-have list, and you might not know what that list is yet. And the great vendor is going to ask you that. So have a budget in mind. Understand you're in good company if you go over your budget. And just think about anything you've ever bought, and you spent more money than you originally wanted to. Why did you do that? Because you wanted those results. And it's the same thing. If you find a great photographer and you look and you say, we set a budget of X, and then they tell you their price, whatever, and you're like, but I love this photographer. I think they're going to be a lot of fun to work with. I think the pictures are going to be amazing. Well, if you want those results, you need to pay that price, just like anything else we buy in life that we spend more than we wanted to. And we do. We do. And sometimes we spend less. We're like, wow, that's amazing. And I would have spent more than that. It's rare. No, but it happens. It happens, right? I've personally posted over 650 reviews on TripAdvisor.
Wow.
Okay, I travel a lot.
That's amazing.
A lot.
Yeah.
And there are sometimes I'll go to a restaurant and I'll look at the price, have an amazing time, and you get the check and you're like, wow, that's it?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's a value judgment. That's not a price judgment. Because if I go to a really higher end restaurant, my expectation is higher, right? And I've been disappointed a couple of times at Capitol Grill in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The last 2 times we went, my sister lives down there, so we've gone there. And I'm not going back, because my expectation, my bar was way high for that, and I don't feel they reached it. And then I have other places where it's like, we had some Hawaiian barbecue at was it L&L?
Yep, L&L.
Right, we went to L&L barbecue. My wife's looking at this place. I was like, people told me it's good. Come on, let's go. And we're sitting there eating out of our plastic container going, this is delicious, right? But my expectation was lower, but they've exceeded that expectation. So price is not a good first question. Price is an important question, but understand price doesn't tell you anything. So better questions would be, first, if availability matters. Let's say you have the date booked already. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now my photographer is available or not available. Okay, so I do need to ask that question. But then after that, it's, think about what's important to you. You as a couple, what's the most important thing? Great questions that your photographer or vendor should be asking you is, what's the most important thing when you're choosing your photographer? What have you experienced with other photographers, either directly or through friends? What do you definitely want that you've seen? And what do you not want that you've seen? So if you say to somebody, hey, we definitely want, this. And if they say, oh, gosh, I've never done that. And like, okay, well.
Red flag, right?
Right.
Yep.
But it could also be something that's so far out there that nobody's seen it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if somebody is like, hey, I've never seen that. I've been doing this for, 15 years, but that is really cool, and I'm going to make that happen. Oh, that's a different attitude.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
So you don't want somebody learning something new on your dime necessarily, but you want somebody who's willing to, zig and zag with you and say, hey, that's a really cool idea. Let's make this happen. But think about to yourselves, what's the most important thing when making this decision? And if you say budget's the most important thing, understand that that's going to limit your choices, because now you're letting the number decide the results. So with your wedding, you might go above your budget on certain things. You might be able to go below your budget on other things, right? That's just what it is. But look at your priorities. And when you set your budget, understand where that number is coming from. If you're just sitting together on the couch and you come up with a number with no reference point to what things cost, understand that number's probably wrong only because of how you set it, but you've never done it before, so how would you know how to do it? So if you use a tool online, they have a budgeting tool, the Not Wedding or any of those tools, they're going to ask you to put a number in. Then they're asking you to check the boxes for all the things you want, and you're going to check everything because you want everything. And then the math just doesn't work.
Right.
Right. Well, my son and his fiance originally were going to have a more traditional reception, and then they changed to something completely different. Their planner said, listen, you guys said you want a band. You can't afford a band.
Right.
Your budget doesn't allow for the band. And I don't know what their budget was. And my son told us, he said, yeah, Kevin said that, we can't afford a band. I said, you can, because we're going to pay for the band.
Oh.
My parents paid for the band for our wedding. I said, we'll pay for the band for your wedding. Now, we waited because we wanted to help, but I didn't want to just blank check help, so we said, we'll do that.
Right.
But understood, they came up with a budget, and my son said, we want a band, and unless, if we weren't helping, they either had to change the budget or change the plans.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think we talk about this a lot too, is just as a couple trying to figure out your nice to haves versus your must haves. And, for maybe me, it might be different than my wife's or whatever it is. And so just kind of, like you're going to spend more on the must haves than the nice to haves.
And then also understand, are they really must haves?
Yeah.
Are they nice to haves? And then think about 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. I always tell this to people who are thinking, well, it has to be a Saturday night or it has to be whatever. I have never once showed my wedding picture to someone when they asked me what day of the week it was.
Right.
Right? The food tastes the same at that venue every day of the week.
Right.
The sun sets the same on Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday and Monday, and it sets the same. So what's really important, right? If you're trying to save on your wedding, the two easiest ways to save on your wedding are change the date and change the guest count. Right? That's the way you save on your wedding. It's always been that way. It's always going to be that way. So what are the really most important things? If I have to get married at that venue, well, let me choose Wednesday, and then it's probably going to cost me less than Saturday when everybody's beating down the doors for Saturday. But think about the must-haves, and are the must-haves going to make or break? Actually, I'll give you a really good example, is the do not playlist for your band or DJ.
Uh-huh.
Right? Please make your do not playlist fit on one hand. And the songs that you should not be playing at your wedding are, if you were married before, should not be your song from your first wedding.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
right? Other than that, I mean, you could say, hey, no foul language or whatever, but if you're hiring a great band or a great DJ, let them read the crowd.
Right.
You can give some must plays, but you also have to understand, if your grandma isn't a metalhead, then maybe Metallica isn't the right thing to be playing at your wedding, at least not too much, or maybe do that later or something like that. But I've seen these, like somebody giving 2 pages worth of do not play and no line dances. And, I got to say this, your cousins and aunts have been waiting for your wedding to do the achy breaky or the cha-cha shuffle or something like that, because they know it and it's the only chance that they get to do it. And if you don't want to dance it, stay off the dance floor, go outside for 4 minutes. But if you look at that dance floor and it's packed with your friends and family, isn't that really what you want?
Right.
So must-haves, I must have a great time, and I must have my guests having a great time. That's, start there, and then say, okay, now how do we accomplish that, or we encourage everybody? Like I had my semi-annual teeth cleaning recently, and the hygienist had just gotten married 3 weeks before. And she said, we just got to look at the photo gallery from the photo booth. And she said, she was like gushing about how fun it was to be looking at the pictures of her guests having a great time in the photo booth. Yeah. And when people say, oh, photo booth is an expense, not to her. Oh my gosh. She was like, that was the best thing. Now, if you would have asked before the wedding, she wouldn't say, the photo booth was the best thing.
Right.
Right. But here it is. Like video please get video, right? Nothing against photographers. You need photography. But I don't have video of my wedding. I wish I had video of my wedding. There are people that are not around that, were at my wedding. I have movies of my parents' wedding in 1954. Professional movies, not like Uncle Joe. Professional, right? My son, my younger son, the one that does shoot weddings, he watched the video not that long ago and cried, right? I put together a compilation for their 40th anniversary. This made a grandson that the son wasn't even born yet, right? This made a grandson that wasn't even born yet cry 70 years later.
That's amazing.
65 years later.
Yeah.
To me, it's that important because it's not how many times you watch it, like not how many times you look at the photos. It's what it means to the people that do, right? My dad passed last year at 93 years old. There was a picture on the wall, a sepia-toned photo of somebody's wedding. We think it's my great-grandmother, but we're not sure. But there's a wedding picture on the wall, right? I mean, that wouldn't exist, right? And what does that mean here? So again, video is different. It's a different thing. And let's face it, TikTok is all about videos. If you love videos on TikTok, you're going to love your wedding video too.
Right.
And so will your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren.
And that's always myself for video, right? Like obviously I'm a big pusher of photo. With video, it's a very different feel. I give that same story that my grandmother has passed away. I can hear and see and imagine her. And a lot of it, because people are like, I'm never going to watch myself. I'm like, I don't ever watch my husband and I, but my daughter watches us. I watch my grandparents. I'm like, it's that legacy, right? And that's what you get in video.
I wrote an article for Wedding Magazine years ago called Let's Watch Our First Dance. Oh, that's right, we can't.
That's brutal.
I know.
The interesting thing, and I kind of love, like kind of where this conversation is sort of ending, is that, when you talk to wedding professionals, you talk to your family and friends, weddings are weird because you don't have any practice doing it. You might have been married before once, this might be your very first wedding, but you don't have practice doing it. You don't know what you don't have because you haven't had it yet or whatever it might be. And so I think that's leaning into your family, leaning into your friends that have been married before, talking to those professionals who do it every single week.
And also ask your friends and family that are married a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, what would you do different?
Yeah.
What is important to you now?
Yeah.
That maybe back then, because a lot of it gets very self-centered. It's about us. It's about us. It's about us. Yes, the ceremony. The rest of it is about everybody that you're inviting to have a great time. If you're inviting people, and let's face it, at their expense, right? It could be, airfare and hotel and meals and maybe some new clothing and all that kind of stuff and a gift. And on top of all that, it's expensive to be invited to a wedding. But it's also time away from family, time away from work or whatever. You're inviting those people. Let's think about what's important here for everybody to have a great time. We had a smaller wedding, smaller being like 120 people or whatever, versus, hundreds of, like some of the weddings that you maybe have been to or heard about and stuff like that. So I remember that conversation about, hey, what about this third cousin that you haven't seen in 10 years? And I was like, if I haven't seen them in 10 years because they live in Alaska, okay, maybe. But if I haven't seen them in 10 years and they live across town, they don't need to come to the wedding, right? And again, everybody's family dynamics are different. I totally get that. But you want to surround yourself with the love of these friends and family. As a matter of fact, my favorite toast, which I'll probably give at my son's wedding, the short toast is that, I hope you feel the love that you're surrounded by today and you feel for each other all the days of your life.
Yeah, that's amazing.
If you could give one tip to couples to kind of wrap this all up, because again, you are just a wealth of knowledge for vendors and again, client facing, I think for them to hear, kind of a business's point of view, but you're coming at it from we're trying to communicate with couples. So what is the best way to do that? What would be that piece of advice, that one piece of advice, if they can take one thing from this episode?
I think a great thing for you to do is to ask your vendors, what should I be asking you?
Mm-hmm.
It's such a hard question.
but
yes.
I think that's what it is. When I'm a consumer, it's one of the things that I do. I'll say, what have I not asked you yet that I should have? And that's when somebody will say, well, here's something that's really important, or here's something maybe we didn't get to discuss. So I found as a consumer, it's been a great question for me, because now somebody will tell me something I didn't know to ask. What should I be asking you, right? So, because again, you don't know what to ask, so maybe somebody will tell you, hey, you should do this. Because some people will talk at you and just throw all this,
Sure.
Some vendors would just blah, 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 blah. I call it like the Disney tour guide. On your right is Magic Mountain. Because they're not involving you in the conversation.
Right.
And then other people are just waiting for you to ask them questions, and you're not getting that. So I think a great thing would be to say is, hey, listen, we've never done this before, and we're never planning on doing this again. What do we need to know that we don't know right now? Right? And then budget will be an important thing, but budget will only matter once you've realized that this is the people or person that I want to help me get to a certain result. And then be prepared that if the number that they tell you doesn't match your budget, if you want those results, you need to change your budget. And again, your friends and family are not going to thank you for cheaping out on stuff, but there's always some place to save. Again, day of the week and the guest count and stuff like that, but also other things where you say, I have to have, solid gold. And maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. Or maybe there's an option on that where, we can give you that feel, but they don't have to be Swarovski crystals, right?
Sure.
They can be, Charlie's crystals, whatever. But that's the idea, is that can we get a result that we want and get closer to the number that feels comfortable? But if you think about it 5 years, 10 years down the line, what's going to be really important is you look back and you remember your friends and family having an amazing time celebrating this momentous occasion.
I love that.
Well, Alan, this has been so much fun to have you on as a guest. We are avid listeners of your podcast. Before we close for today, can you just share a little bit about your own podcast and just, for anyone who wants to learn more about Alan Berg?
Thank you for that. So my podcast is called Wedding Business Solutions. That's also my business name. And I do 5 to 10 minute segments about things that I hear from my clients when I do consulting or speaking, and just things that you're thinking about. What's the one that launched today was, are you rejection proof? Uh-huh. And that's because I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I listened to a book by Zhi Zhang called Rejection Proof. And I'm listening to this book going, you know what, my audience needs to know about this. Yeah. So that's what I do, is just things that I think you want to know about. I literally just turn the camera on, just start talking, and I'm done when I'm done. It's 4 minutes, it's 7 minutes, it's 12 minutes. Every other week I have a guest on. And some of them are just about life, and some of them are about business. And even though it's called Wedding Business Solutions, it really applies to any business. And it's just, me being me, talking as I do, whether I'm on stage or in my books or whatever, about something that I think would be valuable to you. And I've been blessed with that it's, I have 260 or 270 episodes that are out.
Amazing.
I think we're at 240,000 audio downloads, not including YouTube on top of that. And it's been fun, because I resisted it for the longest time, because I thought I had to do a 1 hour podcast, every week. I don't have that kind of time. But these 5 to 10 minute ones are just little snippets. And it's like, if it wasn't me doing my podcast, I'd listen to that, because it's just so easy. It's just a little soundbite over there.
Tessa, we have about those same numbers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know what's fun is, compared to like the major podcasts, my numbers are nothing. Yeah. Right? People are getting 100,000 downloads of each episode. Uh-huh. Mine's total. Uh-huh. And my thing is, if I get 300, 400, 500 within the first couple of weeks, and over time it'll be 1,000 downloads. Which again, I don't do any ads. Advertisers don't care about those kind of numbers. But I just picture a room, because I've spoken in front of thousands of people. I picture a room with 1,000 people in it. That's a lot of people. Right. And if those people are getting value from listening to me, just kind of riffing on something, that is so special to me. And my goal is that every person who listens feels like I was just talking to them.
Mm-hmm. It does feel that way.
Thank you.
As a podcast listener of yours, it does feel like that way.
And I've been doing webinars since 2007, so I'm used to talking to an audience I can't see. But my goal is I am talking to you. Mm-hmm. I am talking to you. And the fact that 300 people, 500 people, 1,000 people will eventually listen to this, but they're all one at a time. It's not like you're sitting in the room listening to me, 1,000 people at a time. I literally just put a line on a spreadsheet with a topic, and then I just start talking. And it's just been a really fun outlet for me. It also supports my brand in other ways. It also helps me with my books and things like that. And because I don't know who's listening.
Right. Well, that's how we found you.
Right. Unless you tell me, I don't know who's listening. But people say, have you gotten business from it? I said, anecdotally, because someone will say, oh, I saw you at Wedding MBA, and I read your book, and I listened to your podcast.
Exactly.
So it's been a really fun thing, and I'm sorry that I resisted before, but I think, they always say, what is it, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago.
I know.
And the second best time is today. So when I got started, and a guy in Utah got me started, a DJ, it's great. It's just been a really fun thing. And I try to stay way ahead. So with my travel schedule, I already have them in the can over there. So it's been a lot of fun. So thank you for listening and finding me that way. And thank you for having me on.
Thanks so much for having us, being a part of our podcast. We are so stoked to have you here. And thanks again. And listeners, I hope you enjoy this bonus episode. See you next time.
All right. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening to another episode of Unveiling Paradise.
If you enjoy our show, please follow us and rate us on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. It would really mean a lot.
And don't forget to also get on our mailing list and follow us on Instagram. Just do it already.
Until next time, this is Tessa.
And this is Joe.
And don't forget, your happily ever after
is just a plane ride away.